Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Planning, Economic, and Community Services meeting. I'm your chair, Commissioner Larry Johnson. I'm joined by Commissioner Jeff Rader from District 2, and I see Commissioner Ted Terry from Super District 6, and we have some great, fantastic staff people who will help us and guide us through this process, and we appreciate you all being on. And we are going to, let me get my stuff together. I told them I'm just coming back off my 31st wedding anniversary, so I'm trying to get back into reality, a decabality. Is it decabality, Jeff Rader? Decabality. And so if you got a chance, Commissioner Rader, if you look over the minutes.
I have, and I move that we approve the minutes May 26th.
Beautiful. I'll second that motion, and all in favor, show of hands and words. Aye. Motion carries. We'll go to our first item. Commissioner Rader, I talked to Mr. Pelton. Patrice is out, and so he's asked us to defer for 30 days. Can I entertain a motion from you to defer for 30 days?
Move that we defer this item for to the, what is that? The
last meeting in July?
Last meeting in July.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you so much. I second that. Is there any more questions? Comments? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We'll go to our first item, which is a renewal, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is WIOA for short. This is our one-stop shop operator. First renewal, 3 options to renew. Contract number 1265085 for use for WorkSource DeKalb. The contract consists of retaining a one-stop operator, coordinated managed workforce. I won't say WorkSource, workforce services, as required by WIOA, Award the Door LLC, the amount of $151,600. Can we hear from the director?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Rob Davis, Director of WorkSource DeKalb.
Hey, I haven't seen you before. How are you? You're new.
I'm new on this here. Yes, sir.
He's been with us a couple of years as the deputy.
I know. I just
doing a great job.
I just want the public to know. Good to see you as our interim director, and let us know a little bit about this item.
Commissioner Johnson. So what this item is, this is a renewal, as you stated. Under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, we're required to have what they call as a one-stop operator. Basically, he is the coordinator. That company, they coordinate all of the activities that go on to ensure that we meet stakeholders, meet with our partners, and they coordinate those activities. In addition to that, especially when the doors are open, they facilitate right now here at 774 Jordan Lane. That's where WorkSource DeKalb is currently located, and also where the Department of Labor is located. So they coordinate those activities to ensure that we have a smooth operation, that we're coordinated working with the Department of Labor.
Excellent. Commissioner Rader, any questions from you?
No, not at this point. It sounds like one that we get on a regular basis.
Yes, this is one, but just a quick question, Mr. Davis, and you can come back at a later time.
Yes.
I'm seeing a lot of now hiring signs in stores everywhere. Can you come back later and show us how you're getting people jobs and employed, and what jobs are available, and just give us an update, an overview of what WorkSource doing?
Exactly right. Yes, Commissioner Johnson, we can do that at any time.
Beautiful. All right, hearing Commissioner Cochran-Johnson, you have a question?
I do not. Thank you.
All right, we'll now entertain a motion.
I'll move to recommend approval.
I'll second that. Is there any more comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion for renewal? Aye. The motion carries. Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis, I'll see you soon. Try to come back in about 30 days, just a report and update on, because we still have some unemployment is low in some areas, but not in all. And what are we doing to get those high unemployed areas, get them the work that they need? Because
you would like for me to do it at PECS, in the PECS meeting?
Yes, sir.
We'll do 30 days.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, now we'll go to our next item, 1589, change order number 1, contract number 1251842 for plan review, inspection, and technical support services for use by Department of Planning and Sustainability. The contract consists of a provision and management of plan review, inspections, technical support services for zoning, land development, building, fire permits award to Nova Engineering and Environmental LLC, the amount not to exceed $500,000. Mr. Baker, take it away.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, commissioners. This is actually a second iteration of a 3-year, multi-year contract that we initiated during the pandemic. We were able to utilize contractual services to try to assist us in the planning department. And so this is the second year of that. Since that time, we've actually did a good job working with HR to fill the positions. And so hopefully we will not have to dip into this into this contract too much in this upcoming year. However, again, it is a renewal of a multi-year contract.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Rader?
I'm interested, though, in our ability, even with the new staff, to be able to turn these around and to reduce the number of, sort of resubmissions and that type of a thing. I know that you're going back to more of an interactive, framework for reviewing plans with folks, but could you talk to me a little bit about, how we're going to use both the staff as well as this contract to make sure that we don't end up with that sort of iterative process of submission, protracted delay, response, then resubmission, that type of a thing, because that ends up being a lot of what we get as input from stakeholders on the process, is that there's a very attenuated period after submission until you get the feedback, and they may have good input, but it just takes a long time.
Yeah, and that's a good question, Commissioner. So one of the things that's going to help us is on the technology approach. Under the new change order that we have processed and we've been working on with technology, it would not allow the contractor or the applicant to proceed further if it's incomplete or if it's missing documentation and certain things. So that's going to help on that end. Also, rather than staff sending emails requesting information, after we have issues with a applicant after 2 times, I've asked staff to have a Zoom meeting and hopefully soon an in-person meeting with the design professionals to say, this is our interpretation of the code. Apparently, we have a disagreement on that interpretation. And rather than going back and forth with emails to try to have in-person or Zoom meetings to discuss the issue. Also, with the new staff, we're trying to make sure that they're doing their comprehensive review on the first iteration, so that once the applicant submits, we have comprehensively evaluated that submission and sent it back. And staff should not be bringing up stuff that they did not catch on the first iteration. So working with all the new hires that we have, working with my new managers, having those conversations and laying out the new process SOPs, hopefully we can cut down on some of those iterations that you made reference to.
Okay, so you've outlined a lot of, I think, solid improvements to that process. Is it possible for Nova to easily dovetail into that? What's going to be involved in trying to get them into this new cycle, or are we going to use them in a different way?
Well, I think that one of the concerns I had from the previous year was we burned through the cash too quickly, in my opinion. And then there's the learning curve of those individuals coming on board and learning our Hansen system and what we're looking for in terms of our ordinances. So that's why we've been partnering with HR to the extent that we have, and that is to get people on full time. And that's why we're actually in our building getting familiar with all these new people, which I don't know but half of them at this point, to try to get familiar with the process, get familiar with being in the space so that we can actually make improvements on the process. So we'll continue to report back to you on the progress that we're making, but I hope to not utilize the on-call services as much in the upcoming year.
Okay, well, when are you going to have us over there?
I'm coordinating with Zach right now to kind of talk about and discuss when that tour can occur.
Okay, that would be great. All right, I appreciate you outlining some of those accommodations. I think that those are positive developments. So I yield back.
Yeah, let me ask a dovetail on that, conversation, Mr. Baker, because you don't want the efficiency and effectiveness to go down based on trying to get the new people to rise up. So how can you use this Nova system to help to keep the flow going? Because you don't want while they learn the system for the people to be asking for the permits not getting done and all of that. Because I don't know if your system helps track their progress as they're learning the system. I mean, do you have like are you putting different like days or minutes they have to put it in the system so you can track the efficiency? Or it's like
Yeah, Commissioner, we can track the efficiency of our employees for sure. And when the Nova or the contractor signs or logs into the system, actually it documents who's touching it, how long they had it, and it also documents who they talked to as the customer. So we know if we redline it and we send it back to the customer, we know how long they kept it before they resubmitted it back to us, so that we can kind of like do a timeline. And so we can tell you how long from start to finish when a permit comes in. And so what we're trying to do is to deal with accountability. So, and that is to stress with my managers to look at each one of their employees and see how long it's taken them to actually do a review. And if they need coaching, mentoring, training, whatever, to focus on those employees that we have that need assistance. So we're actually going to definitely be holding everybody accountable, whether it is the contractor, Nova, or our own employees internally.
So part of the accountability is, and you always have to stress this because this is a teachable moment, you have fire permits, the marshal, and you're not over the marshals, and you have other entities that you're not over. How do you create a system where you can have accountability when a lot of the key factors that go into the process you can't control?
I certainly appreciate that question specifically. Mm-hmm. So one of the things before we open back up to the public, myself along with the administration will be having a meeting with the one-stop shop participants. And so Zach is actually stressing to those departments that everybody needs to be in the one-stop shop. Otherwise, it's not a one-stop shop. And everybody that's supposed to be at those windows in that system and part of the development process has to understand that we are all working in development services, not in fire, not in sanitation. We're in development services at this particular point. In addition, in my reorg, which I'll be coming to you in the mid-year budget, I have identified a person to be over the one-stop shop operation. And so that person will be like the czar in charge of the operation of that shop. And all those people, whether they're in fire, sanitation, or transportation, or whatever, water, sewer, that they all are supposed to respond to the direction of the new czar.
Right. And so part of this, is the system set up so you'll be able to see what's been in the queue so long? So you as the director can say, okay, now this has been over 31 days. Will the system allow you to be able to see how many have been left in the queue for a certain amount of time so you don't have to go back and ask? So I just want, is that system set up that way?
And when my IT, one of the things we're doing is we're going to have a little IT and a help desk within in my mid-year presentation of my reorganization. So okay. Definitely Gary Reimer will be able to talk about what the system will be able to do. But one of the things that I'm looking at with the reorg as well is not only have a czar, but have a person that's going into the system to look exactly for what you're saying. And that is, who has not touched this particular item in 20 days, 25 days? And whether they're in watershed or GIS or transportation or planning department, to reach out to that department to say, hey, your team member has not moved this project or touched this application in 25 days and it needs to be moved.
Right, last question. I hope you get to the point where I see on a lot of sites, a person to pop up say, do you have a question? And where you can ask the person with the headphone, type in the question, and then they can send it somewhere. I'm hoping that your technology can get you to that so people can get answers in real time, 24/7 or whatever time we work. So that can be part of the efficiency piece that you all can work on as well.
And I like that idea. And we've been talking with IT about that. We're working real closely with IT on this approach. But I will say one additional thing, and that is that in the reorg that I'm coming to you at mid-year, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One is the technology. The other one is a internal 311 call center. And the third thing is a IT help desk within the department to create more efficiency and be more customer care more so than customer service.
Well, Mr. Baker, I know you're a veteran. You've been here a long time, so you know mid-years right now. So I don't know when you're gonna bring it. So
Commissioner, it was the budget request has come from budget. I've put it in the budget. So I'm giving you the heads up that when I go to FAB and I'm asking for my dollars, that's why I keep bringing it up as we go through this discussion.
All right, I'm just letting you know mid-years passed already after today. So
I'm coming.
All right, Commissioner Ted Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for the good of the whole, I wanted to offer up something I was introduced to just a few weeks ago. I was on a call and I was asked on a Zoom call, and I was asking the person I was meeting with, who's this other entity? What's this gong? Why is there a gong logged in? And it was an artificial intelligence assistant that will basically track and transcribe all your meeting notes for you. And so I just wanted to offer for the good of the whole. I know folks sometimes, we all have our meetings and a lot of Zoom meetings, but I'm looking into this because it'll save me time just having to do meeting notes and meeting recaps. So just since Larry was talking about technology, check that out. It's new-ish, I guess. It's called Gong. There's another company out there too, but yeah, good. Thanks for the update and appreciate the time.
Commissioner Terry, you're trying to get rid of people. Shame on you.
Actually, Commissioner Terry,
I would have to do the meeting notes otherwise.
I'm going to call you on that. That's brilliant. I'm not familiar.
So that's all the questions we have. I'll entertain the motion, Commissioner Rader.
I move that we approve or that we recommend approval of 1589.
All right, I'll second that. Is there any more comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of 1589, show of hands and words. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And now we'll go to 1594. This is a renewal, demolition of residential and commercial buildings, annual contract, second renewal, second option to renew. Contract number 1220672, 1220675 for the use by the Department of Recreation, Park, Cultural Affairs. These contracts consist of asbestos abatement, demolition, commercial residential building debris removal, awarded to Complete Demolition Services, LLC, and Diversified Environmental Management. Total contract not to exceed $350,000. Mr. Ellis.
Good afternoon. Hope everybody's staying cool. This is, like you said, a renewal. It's for two vendors. And as you know, one of the important parts about this this agenda item is that it's adding SPLOST dollars because we're getting into renovating the shelters, and some of them need to be torn down. A lot of them just been re-roofed. You also have the field houses and concession buildings, those type of things that we're doing some demolition on. We also set aside some regular operating funds just in case there's any acquisitions or anything in the future that we'll need to tear down. So that's why we have two funding sources on there. But any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Rader.
Okay, so this doesn't have anything to do with our in-rem demo, right?
No, this is just, this is for our regular, the SPOS projects and for any acquisitions.
On the Parks and
Just
Rec.
wondering from somebody else, would this, was there an option of rolling this up with other demolition needs of the county in order to get, offer a bigger contract volume that might get more competition? I guess Ms. Horner or Mr. Williams, could you just speak to that dynamic? Because I know we do other demo.
Commissioner, I'm not certain, but we could certainly take a look to see how this relates or how this could relate with what we do in community development.
It seems as though it's the same, you know.
It does, I mean, on the surface, yeah. Commercial and
It also
residential.
talks about both commercial and residential buildings, asbestos.
This is a renewal.
Okay.
Director Warner, are we already, is this a similar contract? I want to confirm that.
It is my understanding that this is a contract that is similar to the one for community development.
I mean, I'm not going to unwind it at this point, but I'm just suggesting that if, you know, we can, seems like, isn't it generally the case if you can offer a larger contract volume that you can get more competition and stuff?
Absolutely.
So what we may be able to do is when the other one comes up, you know, and we'll check the date, maybe there's an amendment to this one. We'll see. Well, I mean, we'll take a look at it.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I'm.
All right, any more questions for anyone? That's all. Presiding Officer Robert Patrick has joined us as well. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Radar, entertain a motion.
Move that we recommend approval of 1594.
All right, I'll second that. Is there any more comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of 1594, show of hands and words. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. And now I'll go to 1625. This is a Sourcewell Cooperative Agreement, number 010521 LTS4, playground water play equipment with related accessories and services for use by Department of Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Affairs. This contract consists of upgrades and renovation for parks and playgrounds and recreational areas awarded Play Power, Inc., an amount not to exceed $887,429.52. Mr. Ellis.
Yes, as you know, we are rock and rolling on replacing through SPLOST playgrounds all over the county. This will be one of several items you'll see come through. This is to cover 3 different playgrounds. It's Shoal Creek 3, M.E. Smith, and W.D. Thompson Park. So those 3 are, it equals this 887 out of the 6,139,000 that we have coming towards you. So you'll be seeing others come as well. It is a cooperative agreement, so that helps us move along a little faster. I want to try to get these ordered as much as possible because there's backlog, like you hear about everything else. So we're just trying to get them in. So hopefully we'll get all the playgrounds replaced this year that we're working on.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Rader?
And did we get a report or a list of the projects that are going to be funded through this?
Yeah, it's in the packet
Okay.
page.
If that's the case, I will refer to it later, and I have no other questions.
All right. I'm gonna ask a Jeff Rader question on this one. They don't have, it's close to it. Mr. Ellis, what I'm gonna ask you, but you can bring me the answer back later. Somehow I'm thinking of the stormwater projects that we talked about. Was it last year, Commissioner Rader?
Yes, we still have, we're doing design and we need to funding the construction.
So we just need to get an update. So put that on your list, Mr. Ellis, to bring us back an update from that. I think we use ARPA funds to help us with that. All right, Commissioner Radar, entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend approval of 1625.
All right, I'll second that. Is there any more questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, words and hands, aye. Motion carries unanimously. And now we'll go to some status update, and we'll go a little bit out of order. I want to hear from Mr. Baker. No, I'll go to Grady Hospital funding. But Mr. Baker, get ready for those signs to talk about the new signs you're going to put up. And we'll go to Grady Hospital. That Mr. Harpert. All right, CEO Harpert, welcome. And I'll let me move my screen down some. I want to go to Mr. Phillips first, or Mr. Williams, to tee this up on where we are and what is the discussion point today.
Right, a couple things. So as it relates to the request and Mr. Hoppert's team presented to the committee, I think 2 weeks ago, and there's been a couple of conversations, several actually, with the CEO and Fulton County chair, as well as their manager and myself, talking about the nursing shortage that's been articulated that's facing not only Grady Hospital, but it's quite frankly a global issue. And the needs, financial needs that Grady finds itself in a position where they are seeking funding from both Fulton County and DeKalb County to essentially make up for a shortfall in funding related to the cost of providing nursing services and the increased cost of nursing services. So what I indicated last time we met was that what we would be looking to do once we receive the next tranche of ARPA funding is see whether or not it would be suitable. Well, we know that it would be suitable. See whether we can bring forward a recommendation for funding from that as a source. And that's what we're looking to do. I am aware that Fulton County has made a commitment to Grady of approximately $11 million, I believe, based on a reimbursement once they receive reimbursement for FEMA funding. I'm not exactly sure if it's the same as our ARP funding, but what we have talked about since we first met with Grady, probably back in January or so, would be considering the use of ARP funds. So I'm hopeful that next time we meet, commissioners, we're in a position to make a recommendation to use ARP funds to provide for this current shortfall in Grady's funding. I'm also hopeful that in the next few weeks, we're able to convene a discussion, probably just with Fulton County initially, but to talk about the contract. In some ways, these issues tie together, and in some ways, we're trying to keep them apart. But I think it will be important to do two things. One, provide assistance to Grady for their financial challenge they're faced with right now. But then for us to really prepare to sit down and negotiate what does service delivery look like in the future in that contract. So, Mr. Chair, I've sent you a few dates, and I can share it with dates with your colleagues, or we can figure out how you want that to happen for us to meet over the next few weeks with Fulton County to have those conversations.
Yeah, send the dates to the committee, and so we can look at them and see. But I think what you have to always consider, and I hope the notes that we gave you from the last committee meeting on some of the things that we talked about on how we want to make sure the funding is tied to working with some of our schools who have those nursing programs, high schools, and get the pipeline started. And also understand that this is a one-time funding option, and you're dealing with a long-term issue, because salaries are not going to go back down, believe it or not. So anything you're talking about now, you need to build in the future. What's the possibility for us working in the future? Because not only nursing is going up, therapists is going up, other parts of healthcare is going up. And so without state help or federal help, the counties are not going to be able to sustain all of the funding for these entities. I mean, Medicaid expansion and all those things have to be on the table to really help us in this funding effort. So you all have to figure out, Grady and the administration CEO, what is going to be the long-term strategy for the approach to not only nursing shortage, but the price for Grady is going up as we deal with this new contract. So, Mr. Halpert, I'll give you a few minutes to give us some comments, and then I'll open it up to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. For those of you who I've not met, I've met all the commissioners, so welcome. It's good to be here with you today. As the manager noted, we are coming to the counties for emergency funding for this current fiscal year and fiscal year's calendar year 2022, related to the impact that wage inflation, primarily in nursing, is having on Grady's financial performance. We had budgeted in this fiscal year a minor margin of 1.5%. but are projecting ending the year with a $50 million loss or a 6.6% margin loss. The 22 million being requested from the two counties, 11 million from each, will be matched by $28 million in cost savings that are being generated through the health system in order to bring the health system to break even for the year. But as Chairman Johnson stated, the new reality across the country in healthcare wages, particularly in nursing and respiratory therapy, physical therapy, radiation therapy, all of the different therapy entities, those rates are never going to go back to where they were pre-pandemic. Now, they certainly won't be maintained at the high levels we saw back in January and February, but we will not see them arrive at that level they were before. And so the upcoming contract negotiations are going to be critically important toward charting what the future funding for Grady looks like and what the county's role will be in that. Chair Johnson and I have spent the last 10 years discussing the need for there to be Medicaid expansion in the state of Georgia. We've made numerous runs at getting that done through the prior governor and the current governor, but have yet to be successful. And unfortunately, in states where Medicaid has not been expanded, the responsibility for funding of public hospitals then falls on the sponsoring counties through their hospital authority. And so this now ends up in the laps of Fulton and DeKalb County versus had expansion occurred, we wouldn't find ourselves in this situation. So we do look forward to that issue being discussed as well. So if there's any questions, Chair or Commissioners, I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
All right, I'll open it up to the committee. Commissioner Rader.
Typically, DeKalb has contributed 30 to 40% of the subsidies from the counties necessary to supplement hospital operations. This request is for an equal contribution from each county. Apparently, Fulton is already committed to their 11 million. How did you arrive at the equal contribution from the two counties?
Actually, the counties arrived at that. We did not, but I will share with you that under the current economics of unfunded care, as you know, Commissioner Rader, we report to you per the current operating agreement, the net cost of uncompensated care for both counties, which factors into and credits the counties with any federal dollars we receive for providing charity care, you get credit for. And that gap between Fulton and DeKalb has narrowed significantly. When you look at the current funding gap, the total uncompensated care cost in DeKalb County is $68.3 million per year. Fulton is $87.8. But on a per capita basis, based on total citizens per county, that's $90 per citizen or per capita in DeKalb and $83 in Fulton. And so we are now near 50-50% when it comes to the charity care levels being provided to the two counties, even though DeKalb is small.
Right. Since you indicated that the counties had negotiated the equal split, Mr. Williams, can you speak to that?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know that we have made a commitment to an equal split, but we've certainly heard the conversations and are aware of the contribution commitment from Fulton. I think between now and when we bring something forward, we would finalize what we feel is most appropriate. But I don't think it is safe to say that we're assuming that it's 50-50. It may ultimately be that, but yeah, I don't think we have negotiated or committed to a 50%.
What are the implications of not being able to supplement your staffing resources by $22 million? Mr. Hopper.
Well, numerous. Grady will have to begin the closure of the neighborhood health centers in the two counties, which as of now are the primary access point for most people who are uninsured or underinsured seeking primary care and specialty care services within their communities. As we've talked about over the years, the current funding level does not support the level of community presence for healthcare that's required or needed for both counties for us to truly, us meaning the counties and Grady together, to truly impact improvement of healthcare. And so those neighborhood health centers would be the first things that would need to be closed. Second, we would have to look at closing the obstetrics and gynecology program, which serves thousands upon thousands of women from both counties. It is the primary training program for both Emory School of Medicine and the only residency training program for Morehouse School of Medicine. And then last, but certainly not least, is we would have to look at the closure of mental health services. And as you're aware, Grady is the primary provider of mental health services in the state of Georgia behind the jail and prison systems.
And how did you arrive at those as the staffing responses as opposed to other areas? Is there any potential for shifting some of the burden of acute care to the other hospitals within the region? They depend upon Grady, you know, to take care of folks that, you know, need acute care. Is there any potential for directing more of that demand to the private or nonprofit hospitals?
The answer to that in short is no, in that if you'll recall back in 2007 when Grady was risking closure prior to the new lease and transfer agreement going into effect between Grady Memorial Hospital Corporation and the counties, there was an attempt made to do that that was not successful. Secondly, I'll comment on this, but if you need more information, Tim Jefferson's on the call and can opine on this. The hospital authorities law in the state of Georgia calls on the sponsoring counties to fund the uncompensated care provided to the citizens of those counties. It does not call on the other hospitals in the market to do the same.
Anything to add, Mr. Jefferson?
Well, not really, but you know, we've tried in the past to get other counties and other hospitals to pick up some of the load that we bear here at Grady, and that's been unsuccessful over the years. And so we are the primary provider of indigent care here in the Atlanta region, and unfortunately, that's been the case for many years. And so, you know, we understand your question, Commissioner Rader, but you know, we've tried that on numerous occasions, and to no avail. We go on diversion, for example, in major crises, and the other hospitals go on diversion as well. And so we wind up picking up the same load that we carry, you know, on a regular basis. And so it's really not an option for us to seek the other facilities and the other counties to pick up some of the costs and the care of indigent patients that we see here at Grady.
Okay.
You know, a great example of that, Commissioner Rader, occurred this past Sunday night when a DeKalb County resident, 17-year-old female, was brought into Grady with gunshot wounds. And the family, 40 members of the family, arrived at the emergency department and were in the waiting room, and a fight broke out among the family members. That was de-escalated, and the family members moved outside and across the street in front of what is the Emory School of Medicine building. The family was notified not long after that the 17-year-old woman had passed away from her gunshot wounds. And a fight broke out again among the family members, and shots rang out, and the crowd dispersed and ran toward Grady, but Grady had to go on lockdown status and shut all doors, lock all doors because of the gunshots. And so Grady was shut down for several hours without being able to receive any trauma care or stroke care, burn care, all of which had to be diverted to other hospitals within the community. And unfortunately, when the dust settled, there was one young man dead in the middle of Jesse Hill, and another seriously injured that was brought into Grady. The doctors were allowed to go out, care for the wounded, and bring them into Grady for care. But just during that period of time, the one other level 1 trauma center in the market became overwhelmed just in that period of time, and had to go on diversion as well. So there was not a level 1 trauma center available.
Sounds like mayhem.
Yeah, indeed.
And thank you for answering the questions. You, I think, mentioned in today, as a matter of fact, we accepted a state CARES Act funding grant because they're trying to push money out the door. Do you see any prospects for some of the money that the state's sitting on being able to help to supplement Grady's operating needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so we have made a couple of requests of the state for initially, well, I'll back up to that. So primarily around the ARPA funds, that one payment has already been made to the counties in the state. The second one is on the way. That request was denied. From the CARES Act funding, which occurred earlier on in the pandemic. The state did provide $54 million in support to Grady and supplemental staffing funding, which was incredibly appreciated. But from the ARPA funds, those requests were denied. The DeKalb CEO, the chair of the Fulton Board of Commissioners, and the Atlanta mayor all met with the governor related to this issue to discuss the governor's office, not directly with the governor, to discuss an additional funding from the ARPA funds for Grady. And basically the answer was Grady is constitutionally the responsibility of the two counties, not the state.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I could just add one more thing. The timing of us being able to meet our obligations and to be able to end the year in a fiscally sound manner is crucial for us right now. We're midway through the year, and we've been dealing with the nursing issue, since the beginning of the year, and we've been trying to come up with ways to address that issue, and we have. But it depended on and still depends on us being able to get some additional emergency funding from the two counties, which it was our understanding the commitment was there and is there. But timing is key for us right now. If we're going to end the year and address this issue, by the end of the year, so that we at least at break even for the year, it's critical that we're able to get the additional funding now rather than later in the year. And so that's why I just wanted to add that timing is key for us.
Okay, and by the end of the year, you mean by the end of the June 30th fiscal year, right?
By the end of the December 30th.
Okay, so it's December 30th. I thought you were saying like this month.
No, I'm saying that our calendar year ends December 30th, but for us to meet our goals of being able to break even by the end of the year,
I got you.
we need that funding now in order to address these issues that we're addressing going forward.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, but I would add that the Grady Board of Directors is meeting June 21st and has a very high expectation that there is approval for those funds for Grady, not necessarily having to be paid by that date, but that there is approval by both counties for those that emergency funding for Grady.
All right. Well, thank you.
I would only say that that's 7 days from now, Mr. Williams.
Right, so ideally, well, there wouldn't be approval next meeting because it's a committee of the whole, but maybe we can be in a position that at the following meeting, we're able to work out the details, the exact amount, and some of those things that the board, the committee mentioned at our last meeting, some basic assurances and understanding. So I think it's CEO Hopper within the realm of possibility for sure within the next few weeks. And I see no reason to Mr. Jefferson's issue that it would not be worked out well in advance of the end of the year. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Terry had a question.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to him. Let me run the meeting now. I got it.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Are you back?
Yeah, just to add, I just want to keep reiterating this point that the $11 million is only until December 31st. The new year starts January 1st. So you're not solving, you're putting in some money for now, but you're not solving the problem long term. And so part of the discussion, we hope that when you do come back, Mr. Williams, that we need a long-term strategy, because what Mr. CEO Harper outlined, he said mental health, the clinics, all of those things are prevention-oriented places. But I keep trying to remind people, healthcare is a business. They're not going to get rid of those expensive surgeries, because the surgeries, those nice ones, make money. So a lot of the services that we look at as the local level are services that cost money. And so if it costs Grady money and how big they are and what they do, you can't put this on those small clinics, because the clinics in our neighborhoods are facing the same problem with funding. So it's a dilemma that's bigger than just the county. It's going to take a state and a federal solution to help us, because we're going in the midst of a recession that's about to happen. So we're going to have more potholes. We're dealing with police. We're dealing with our jail. We got mental health. We got the Board of Health. So there's a lot of things that we have to consider that's going up, not just Grady. So I just want to put everything in totality without being doom and gloom. But this 11 million gets you till December 31st. It doesn't get you through 2023. And so I'll end with that and go to Commissioner Terry so we can move on to the next item. Commissioner Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quickly, I did want to just add my support to the proposal. I fundamentally believe that if we do not provide basic healthcare services for the most at risk, we will be paying for it in the long run, in even a larger measure. I do want to point out that in the Democratic Party platform, federal, state, and I think even at the local level, healthcare is the top issue. And whether it's universal healthcare or affordable healthcare or just paying for children and indigent, I mean, it is a Democratic Party platform. And I'm looking at 5 metro counties that are 90% Democrat. And we are being asked to put our ARP money in, which I support, but other counties also have ARP money. So I would submit that we should ask Clayton, Cobb, and Gwinnett, and maybe Rockdale, maybe Douglas. I mean, we got a lot of counties that are being served by Grady to pitch in, and they can't say they don't have it, because they do. And then to a larger point, I think that we should, and I know that CEO Thurman and the other leaders of those counties meet monthly. So I would just submit that at the next monthly meeting, that we begin the conversation with our 3 other major counties and seriously ask them, we need y'all to join this system. We can no longer do it ourselves. I mean, we could, but it's obviously becoming to the point where it could be untenable. Because we're talking about ARP money now, but what do we do next year? It's tax money next year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Commissioner Terry,
I think we should just formalize an ask. I just want to say that we should formalize an ask, and we should ask those commissioners, those care people, to work with us to join this larger umbrella that is serving so many people, not just in Fulton and DeKalb, but in their counties as well.
Let me add.
So if I may, real quick,
let me add, Mr. Holford, you can add to this, but it's something that we did a couple of years ago. We did send bills to all of the counties, and they told us, well, we got residents from all your counties using our system, and we're paying. So that's what the response is going to be. But CEO Harper, what you have to say?
Yeah, Chairman Johnson's exactly right. We have on a regular basis reviewed. So 90% of the care provided by Grady is provided to citizens of DeKalb and Fulton. The remaining 10% is provided to residents of outlying counties and even counties across the state. But those patients are usually patients who are being flown into Grady or brought in via 911 for trauma, burn, stroke, and cardiac care. And that population is much more highly insured, commercially insured, than is the 90% from Fulton and DeKalb. And we've run the economics on that and also looked at the number of Fulton and DeKalb unfunded patients who are going to Clayton, Gwinnett, and Cobb for healthcare services. And that bill is far greater than what would be coming into Fulton and DeKalb versus going out. So when we go down that road, those counties say, we'd love to engage in that conversation because you're going to owe us more money than we're going to owe you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add one
Mr.
last.
Terry, the system is broken. That's what the system is broken. You can't, it's hard, it's rough. Anything else before we go to our next item?
If I can just add one last thing, Mr. Chairman, you know, we stand really at great to start the process of negotiating a new agreement, you know, going forward, you know, for the next year and the years after. We're ready to start whenever you all are. And, you know, you mentioned last time that it would be ideal for us to have an agreement in place by the end of this year. We agree with that. And we would love to be able to sit down and get that process started, you know, today, if possible, if we're going to get to the end of the year with a new agreement. And so we urge, you know, that your commission as well as the Fulton County Commission, let's sit down and get it done. Let's you know, we know we have to do this because next year is coming.
Right.
So, you know,
what we're committed to, we've asked Fulton County to come to the table in March and February, but we had some scheduling conflicts. And so Mr. Williams is working on bringing us together so we can get it done. And we'll work on that. So thank you so much. And Mr. Williams, you'll bring us some back in 2 weeks. And,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And then I forwarded everyone the dates, the potential dates for full.
Commissioner Rader, can you take over right quick for me and go to the permitting system? And I'll be right back, okay?
I will indeed. Next item for discussion is our permitting system. Mr. Baker, you began to talk a little bit about that earlier in the meeting, so why don't you continue with your presentation?
Right. Thank you very much for this opportunity to update the commissioners. And if you guys will give co-host ability to Mr. Reimer so that he can get keyed up. So Sylvia, he switched gears on you guys. We're not doing the signs right now. We're going to do the permitting.
And Mr. Reimer does have full control.
Okay. So if you can pull up the PowerPoint, we'll start to update the commissioners on where we're going with this particular item.
Mr. Reimer, are you with us?
I am, sorry. Do I have the slides or are the slides provided?
If you'd like me to share, I can, but I was told that you had the presentation, but so either way, sir.
Okay. You can go ahead and share the slide for me, please. Thanks.
All right, give me one moment. Thank you. All right, let's see.
So while John is pulling up that particular PowerPoint, I did want to say again, this is just an update to the PECS Committee as it relates to development services. And part of this presentation will be given primarily by Gary Reimer, which is my technology manager. And if necessary, on this particular items, we have been coordinating closely with IT, and the IT project manager is Barry Ham. Next slide, please. So Commissioner, the chairperson actually sent us, Commissioner Johnson sent us specific questions that he wanted us to address. So this update is primarily to talk about the Hansen technology, the contract, the software that we've completed and implemented over the past few months. He was asking about the technology progress that we have made in this year in comparison to the previous year. And then Commissioner Johnson asked us specifically for some information in terms of our personnel, our vacancies, and our hiring so far. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Gary to just talk about the various systems. I would like to say that we always say Hanson software, but there are several components in software that are part of this permitting process. So I'll turn it over to Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Baker, and thank you, commissioners. I'll give an update on the current system and actually what we've done over the last year regarding technology within planning and sustainability. So within, as Mr. Baker stated before, the permitting system is made up of a couple of different systems. Most of you are familiar with the Hanson Infor system. So people use them interchangeably, either Infor/Hanson or Project Docs. So Project Docs is our e-plan system, and that's a separate system that ties into our Infor system. But it's two different systems that our customers actually have to go through and manage, either from a permitting system and an e-plan system. Early this year, we upgraded the Project Docs system from 9.1 to 9.2 and went live on that new version of the system in March 19th, 2022. Last year, regarding Infor, we did upgrade from 8.4 to 11.2 in April 2021. And we started an upgrade project around July 2021. We're currently in that rhythm project. We're getting towards the end of that, and I'll give you guys an update on where to schedule it at the very end of this. But within that project, we kind of made some very small changes where we kind of made some small wins for the customers. For example, in December 20th, 2021, we had the notification option where customers, when they created a business license, created a permit, they automatically got an email notification within the system, let them know that the application was submitted successfully. We've had in the past a lot of times where customers either call or email us trying to find out, did I submit my application successfully? And all of those will be eliminated by us being able to submit that notification through the system automatically. Again, that went live in December 2021. It was not a full rollout. That only was going towards the trade permits, the HVAC, the plumbing, those type of permits, and also the business licenses. In the main rollout of the, when we do the rhythm system, more enhancements to notification will also occur. So within rhythm, so phase 2 of that particular project, we're in that right now. And again, told you we're getting towards the end of that particular project right now. The tentative go live for that is currently around August 1st, 2022. What that would help us in doing is reduction of incomplete applications being submitted by applications. A lot of times, it's been said before, in the current system right now, within permitting, within business licenses, there's a lot of back and forth between the permitting staff and the customers, because today, customers are able to submit incomplete applications. With the new system, customers are gonna know specifically right up the bat, specifically what documents are needed, what forms are needed for the application. And the system will require them to submit those forms as part of the application process. The applicant will not be able to move forward unless those forms and requirements are filled within the system. So it will kind of eliminate the back and forth between the staff and the customers are trying to figure out what's missing forms. Because a lot of times, again, as I said before, customers do submit applications, but a lot of times they're incomplete and the staff has to go either by emails or call and get the customers to send those forms in. A lot of times it takes the customers sometimes weeks, sometimes a couple of months to submit those applications. Secondly, fee payment. A lot of times that's one of the issues with customers who's trying to figure out where are my fees for my permits, where are my fees for my business license. On the new system, as soon as the customer sign into the system, there's a fee payment option right there within them. They get a full view of their payment. For example, if a customer has 5 permits in the system, they will quickly see the total of those 5 permits. They have the option of paying that total fee, or they can pay a separate permit fee one by one for each permit. The new system will also be mobile friendly to be able to do the payments, be able to submit the applications, business license and permitting through more mobile friendly than our current system. Also, access applications on the go, stated before, they can actually have visibility with their status. Right now, a lot of times too, they call after they submit the application. Okay, so where is my application? Within the new portal, a customer will be given a 5 to 7 grid view of where their project is in the system. So the ability can tell quickly what milestone that particular project is within the system and get a view. They won't be able to check to see specifically how many, if it's in a review system, they wouldn't get a breakdown and see specifically what reviews are pending. That is will be viewable in the e-plan system. Next slide, please. So with this written project, we had 3 change orders that we submitted for approval for the project. And so far, they've all been approved. The first one was a change order for building permits. What we realized is that when we did the discovery for the rhythm project and we talked to all of our departments within planning and sustainability or business license or permitting or land development or zoning, a lot of our departments within planning were doing a lot of manual processes in addition to using the system. What we try to do is kind of automate as much of those processes that the departments use to get the system running into Henson as much as possible. So change order number 1 was related to permitting. Again, permitting had a system where they were capturing some information from an Excel spreadsheet and then some within IPS. We eliminated that to move that manual capturing of that information within Henson, where we would not need to be capturing information from them on an offsite system. Change order number 2, talk within business licenses. So business licenses was the major change within the new system. We did a major overhaul from the back end with the Rhythm project because a lot of their processes, every step within their process was manual. They also calculated fees using a calculator that was manually created, again, in an Excel spreadsheet. We got the way that spreadsheet was developed, and we actually integrated that spreadsheet calculator for multi-year payments within the Henson system. So again, trying to move away from creating silo off systems and putting everything within the IPS Henson system. So change order number 2 talked about putting that calculator in there within generating the multi-year spreadsheet calculator within that system. And also again, creating their workflows to make sure they're automated. Again, every step within business license previously or currently, the staff actually does do that manually, and we're actually automating a lot of the processes in the back end. Change order number 3, this was partly regarding our ACI payment processing with the merchant. So because of our Rhythm platform, the way that we're doing it right now, and the way we're doing payments, we actually had to kind of streamline the way within our payment was handled to a merchant processor. Initially, this work was going to be done by ACI, but because they have an 18-month freeze on their system because they're moving from one platform to another, so system-wide, they can't do any custom work on that platform for 18 months because of their overall. So we actually had to move that work from the merchant processor to Infor for Infor to get done to kind of be able to help with the payments. Again, without this particular change order, we would kind of have situations where customers could have the option of paying twice by mistake because of the way the fees were displayed. So we kind of eliminated that by having that being fixed on the Infor end. Again, as I said it before, throughout this project that we've made a number of changes that affect all of our divisions. Like I said it before, business license had the biggest overall within the back office. We automated a number of their processes, same up for permitting. And again, the main goal of this is for us to automate as much possible all of our manual processes that we're doing within permitting and planning. Next slide, please. So this is currently our project schedule for the Rhythm project. So the red line is where we currently are within the schedule. And the green line, it's a small green line, as you can see, is where the current project end line is. So as of 6/10, this is where we currently are, and it's middle of June. So what we are currently right now is we're in UAT testing. So basically what happens is at this particular stage is all the work Infor has done, they've presented it back to DeKalb County, all of our divisions for us to go ahead and do testing. We've done 3 weeks of testing. We're actually in week 4. It was supposed to last 3 weeks, but because of the additional number of issues we found, and also because of some internal departments having to do additional work, we've gone into week 5 of that particular testing. So far, we've found about over 100, I think it's over 100, about 105 issues that within our testing we have found. We've sent those back to Infor. They have pretty much fixed most of those issues that we've had. There's a couple of things remaining, but this is where we currently are. We're anticipating to complete UAT testing by this Friday from all departments within planning, and then we will start the closing phase of this project for the next few weeks moving forward. I think that's it for the permitting system.
Right, thank you, Gary. I think, again, if we could just hold for a moment, commissioners, what we tried to do again is to talk about some of the status of the technology changes. And I think what Gary tried to identify definitely was with the new system, we will be having email notifications to the customers, which is through the project docs, that we also have notifications on the trades of when the permits are ready to print, which is in the N4. We actually have, working with Rhythm for Civics, have done a reduction in the number of applications that can be submitted in incomplete, adjusted the fee payment to make it easier, cut down on the manual processes, because if you've got an electronic system, you shouldn't have to do all these workarounds. And so we've worked on those things. And so we're actually doing the testing on those. And again, by going through the testing, we're identifying where the problems are with the system and the way it was set up. And we've sent that back so that when we do officially launch with the system, that it will be working smoothly for the customers. And so we're expecting sometime latter part of July with all that to be done by the vendor. So the rest of the, if we can go back to the PowerPoint, I think that basically the only other thing that was in the PowerPoint was just extra items just for the commissioners. And I don't, next slide, please. Because one of the other questions that was asked was how we were doing on vacancies. And so you approved the item for NOVA, which is the contract for the professional services that will help us in terms of any place area that we're behind in performing services. We'll have a vendor that we can have on-call services. But what I did was to take the organizational chart and to highlight for you where we are in terms of our vacancies. Again, we have been focusing with HR to fill our vacancies. And if you look at this existing organizational chart for the department, you will see the highlighted yellow are the areas where we do have some vacancies. In long-range planning, you can see about 3. In current planning, you see about 5 or 6. We do expect about 3 more actually in current planning. So just to alert you, it's going to be a significant impact in terms of your zoning cases, as well as in terms of the plan reviews that are necessary to make sure that the land disturbance permit, as well as the business licenses, as well as the zoning construction is complying with your conditions for those reviews to occur, because those happen in the current planning division. Then you can see highlighted the vacancies in the inspections area, and then in business license, in that particular area, we have a new manager, and we only have probably 2 employees that have been there any length of time. So the business license unit is totally new, and then we still have about 3 vacancies. Permitting, you see a couple of vacancies, and in plan review, we have a vacancy, and in land development, we have a vacancy. So again, working with the HR development, our focus has been to try to fill the vacancies with quality staff in a competitive market with the private sector, and trying to retain the staff that we have. The rest of your packet actually really just deal with individual performances. I'm not going to go over those. I just wanted you to have those. We provide a weekly report to the CEO about our numbers. So one of the charts that's in that package shows year to date going through May. If you look at the individual charts behind there, you will see the individual performances as up to last week. And so those numbers show us that we're on scale to actually do better than we've done in the previous years during the pandemic, but not as well as 2019. But we are, again, continuing to strive to provide and improve our numbers and our responsiveness to our customers. And we're hopeful that when the technology comes online, that we'll do even a better job in responding to our customer base.
Okay, and I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Larry Johnson, but I just had a question. Does any of the capacity that NOVA that we recommend approval on their contract, can that be applied to any other area than plan review? Can they do any of the zoning backfill and that type of a thing?
Yeah, we were fortunate in the previous go-round, Commissioner. You remember Ray White? He actually was working with Nova. And so he was working with us on the plan reviews in the current planning division to review the land for compliance with land development reviews and the zoning reviews and so forth. So yes, we expanded that professional services contract to cover everything we do, whether it's inspections or accounting tech or permit tech or plan review or land development engineering. We expanded it to include all.
Okay, so I just heard you say earlier when we reviewed that you were seeking to rely less on the Nova contract, but it seems with the vacancies, you're going to have to lean into it over the short term. Is that fair?
That is fair, except for staff has been conducting interviews. I approved for 3 additional planners actually today for HR to offer salaries to. And so hopefully, again, we will be filling positions. So again, that's what the chart looks like today in terms of vacancies, but hopefully we're going to fill those pretty quickly. If we do not fill them, yes, Commissioner, we can take advantage of the Nova contract.
Well, don't get too far in the weeds before you start going to recourse with it.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yield back.
Thank you, Commissioner Rader, for handling that for me. I'll go to Commissioner Ted Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the updates. I did want to ask, just from kind of an employee relations perspective, when we look at those vacancies for the positions you mentioned, Director Baker, and I know we're talking with CO Williams and Mr. Jacobs about doing, a more sort of full survey of our employee base, but are y'all finding anything in particular within the planning department staff that are sort of seen as additional employee benefits or other ways of sort of structuring roles that would maybe make them more competitive or increase retention? I'm kind of generally curious, do we do surveys of our own departments and sort of get a sense of, what it might take to keep them here? We could ask Gary, why do you work here? Well, what would keep you here? But, just that kind of that ongoing feedback. So I'm just curious if that's something that y'all done or would be willing to kind of work on in the future.
We have done it to an extent. Some of our positions were definitely hard to fill. And so we did work with HR and they did hire a firm to compare, for instance, in our hard to fill salaries and pay in comparison with other jurisdictions in Atlanta Metro. So we have taken that step. And so my conversations, the ongoing conversations with HR is exactly what you're saying. We not only want to get them here, we want to retain them. And so did a further questionnaire or survey of the existing staff to try to find out what are they like, what can we improve, how do we keep them kind of a thing, could be definitely the next step in working with HR. So I appreciate the question and I will follow up with HR.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Baker, for a great update. You want to talk about those signs?
Sure, if we could, while Sylvia Smith is coming on as a project manager, but we also have a new planner that we've recently hired, which is Brianna McLeod. So I'm gonna let her take
welcome, Brianna.
Thank you.
So one of the things is that we've realized that a lot of citizens actually complain about our signs. And even you, Commissioner Terry, Commissioner Johnson, you guys have reached out to us about what can we do to get larger signs. As you know, the signs that we put up and the things that we do, a lot of them are state mandated. And there's certain things we have to have on the signs. There's certain number of days we have to put them out there, certain number of days to run the ads. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is how can we do a better job of getting public participation? As you know, we deal with Historic Preservation Board, we deal with sketch plans, we deal with rezonings, we deal with SLUPs, we deal with variances, land uses, text amendments, administrative variances, and we're always trying to facilitate participation at the BOC, the Planning Commission, the Community Council, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. So staff has been challenged to go out and research and to come back with a recommendation for you. So we're going to seek your recommendation and guidance today as it relates to the PowerPoint. If you could put the PowerPoint up, it'd be great. All that talk I was doing was actually stalling for the PowerPoint to be up, and it didn't work. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'll yield.
Can you all see my screen that says public hearing signs?
Yes.
You're actually
You
seeing
may
my
proceed,
screen, but
ma'am.
go ahead. Go ahead, please.
So, as Andrew said, my name is Brianna. I am the new planner for the Long Range Planning Division, and I'm going to present to you today the public hearing signs. The purpose of this presentation today is to present new ideas for signage to improve the legibility of public hearing signs. Next slide, please. We have the goals here. Number one, the goal will be to implement larger signs to improve visibility, to enhance compliance with state zoning law, to promote community engagement, and number four, for a clear aesthetic and a more modernized look. Next slide. Here we have our current signage. As you can see to the right, we have two signs that were placed on the property. And so the issues with that were the signs were not large enough, and it can be a potential hazard for drivers and pedestrians that are trying to review the signage. Here we listed the state requirements, as Mr. Baker explained, what all needs to be on the signs, and then the administrative needs of having the signs, which is a high volume, time, and practicality in the transport. Next slide, please. Here we have the zoning signs comparisons. We have a county in the city of Brookhaven. As you can see, the Forsyth County uses a 32 by 48 signage right now. And then the city of Brookhaven uses a 48 by 36 signage. So this is the signs what they currently have. Next to it, you have the zoning signs comparison chart. We are currently using a 24 by 36 signage, and we are proposing to go up to a 32 by 48 sign. Next slide. Here is our potential look. The lettering system distinctly identifies the notices by assigning each notice a single letter, which provides clarity on specific cases, giving a larger visibility to the public. The pop of color creates a more engaging aesthetic look. As you can see to the top left, this is currently what the city of Atlanta is using for their public hearing signs. So we are looking to incorporate the lettering system into our new look of signs, which would pop out to the citizens or the people that are driving to see, what public hearing signs to differ from which case by case. And to the bottom right, that is currently what the city of Sandy Springs is using. They also incorporate the lettering system in their signs as well. Next slide.
And those letter designations are standard across the different users? Is that right?
The different counties and the different?
Yeah, that's right. The jurisdictions, they all use the same letter for the same process?
No, their lettering, they use the lettering system, but it's not the same for each case. They have a different, each city and county has a different case for what they use.
Oh, okay. So instead, this one, instead of saying Z for zoning, this is R for rezoning.
Yes, that's correct. So here is a new example.
Doesn't make any sense. I mean, people get used to those. Did y'all consider using one that was more uniform to others? Or is it impossible? Mr. Baker, is that our systems too different from each other to have a similar?
We're actually open to suggestions from this committee. In terms of that, we will compare and investigate, is there a common nomenclature? But again, this is actually a proposal just to use an alphabet.
Okay, so so just consider that as input, is that if we can move to a uniform, and it may be that we don't have all the same categories, but I know all those tree approvals, we don't have so many tree approvals.
Exactly.
Go
ahead, Brianna.
Go ahead,
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. And here is the proposed new signage example that we were going with. As you can see, the letter R would stand for the rezoning public hearing notice sign. And we also added the QR code as well, so that could be scanned and the information can pull up. And then here's an example of what it would be on a 32 by 48.
Yeah, I hate to ask a question just again, is the QR specific to the case or is it a general portal? It would be specific, it would be a general portal, right? And then they'd have to search for the number?
Is there a preference
sir.
as to, go ahead, Brandon, what you say?
Yes, sir. The QR code right now, as we're contemplating it, would take the resident to our public hearings page, and they would cross-reference the case number with the information on the web page.
Okay, and all I would suggest is that if you do that, try to get them as deep into the rezoning public hearing schedule as you can, so that if there's a different page or subpage for the other, that it actually takes you as far as you can, rather than it taking you just to the planning, landing page or something.
Yes, sir. Understood.
Yeah, thanks.
Commissioner Cochran-Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, in terms of the QR code, I know it would be more work, and I'm not trying to create it. But if you will house each of the documents separately, there could be a separate QR code that takes the person directly to that particular item, instead of requiring the residents to go to a general page and then find the item itself. And, the 32 by 48 is certainly an improvement, but I would argue, I think Commissioner Johnson and I know a lot about signs these days, that if you're going to go ahead and get a sign, we might want to go ahead and look at a 48 by 48. Yeah. Because even with a 32 by 48, the difference is here you have a lot of content, words. So it's not going to be an easy read. It is certainly an improvement, but you're honestly only talking about maybe a $5 to $7 difference between the size. So I don't think the cost is where your issue will come in. It just becomes a matter of what we think is best to ensure. And for me, I'm only concerned about maximum visibility, because I know myself, often I'm passing these signs and I plain and simply can't read what's going on. So I have to pass it 2 to 3 times and concentrate, and each time go down another line. Right. So that I'm able to read and understand what's going on when. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And Commissioner, could we show just the next slide, and then can we go back to the one that has the sizing on it and entertain questions? Okay. So this again was just, we were considering using the Z for the zoning board of appeals, but you could have used the V for variance. So in terms of the alphabet that we can use, we're open to any suggestions that you may want to utilize. The special land use permit is S, historic preservation age. But again, we haven't done all the signs. We were just trying to give you an example of what we were considering utilizing. And now, John, if you can go back to the slide that has the different sizes on it. That right here. So Commissioner Cochran's suggestion, if you can say that again, and then we'll entertain the rest of the question. What size did you suggest, Commissioner?
I suggested a 48 by 48, and you see, of course, you have it standing there vertically, but if you turn it to the side, it's going to be a much bigger sign. I honestly wouldn't be opposed to a 48 by 96, but I still think the 36 by 48 is small.
Right. Okay. Let's write that down so we can consider that. And let me ask you this question. I'll get to Terry and Robert Patrick now. Mr. Baker, you were here when you were under Mr. EGK. And we had the commissioners had already talked about larger signs, and we had already got agreement that you would make them larger. But the ones you got now, the little orange ones, people drive past there, like Commissioner Cochran-Johnson said, you got to look at them 2 or 3 times, but we'd already had stated that we wanted larger signs. Now, what do we have to do differently with this process to make sure that it is part of your practice? So keep that in mind as you go,
To pass a law.
we asked for bigger signs. Oh, I thought we passed them all.
No,
No,
we just
Commissioners-
asked. We always ask politely.
Okay, well,
Yeah, you politely asked, and we did the research this time and brought it to you after hearing the complaint over and over. So the last slide, which we didn't get to, was an estimated cost to do the signs, whatever comes out of this committee. So again, I'm teasing it to just let you guys know that the vendors' cost estimates are listed here, and you can see what we have been spending with 16,000 for about 1,000. The city of Atlantis was costing about 18,000, and the city of Brookhaven sign, which is 32 by 48, was costing 35,000. So based on what you guys, the direction we get from you, we're then going to come back to you with the mid-year budget. And we're going to say, based on the size of sign and the type of sign that you're requesting, we're doing a budget amendment at the mid-year to purchase however many signs of the type and size that you're saying you want. So that's why it was important to add this to your agenda so that we could hear from you and get guidance from you.
okay. And what you also need to do is send this to each commissioner, and then commissioners send it back to me, and then the committee, and then we'll get it to Andrew, so we can look at that at our next committee meeting. So Mr. Baker, send that information and the price and all that sizes, so we can have it, and then we can deliberate on that at our next committee meeting. I'll go to Commissioner Patrick and then Commissioner Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to say that I agree with Commissioner Johnson that the 48 by 96 are much easier to see. When I worked in Norcross, we also started using the QR code. There was a lot more foot traffic in that smaller city, which was easier when you're walking your dog to just take a picture of that and download the link to where all of the zoning applications were. But either way, I think that the larger sign is appropriate. I have heard other jurisdictions just say whatever the signage cost is something that's directly paid by the applicant. So there's the rezoning fee or the application fee, and then the public notifications, everything from the newspaper to the actual physical sign being put in the ground is all carried by the applicant. And I've even heard that some jurisdictions put the responsibility of putting the sign in the ground on the applicant. And then they have to come back with the documentation within a time frame that shows that it's been done in a timely manner. And that sort of takes the pressure off of staff from having to handle everything on their own. Those were my comments. I'd never seen the H for historic preservation or S for special land use, but those seem like pretty smart ideas for nomenclature to make it easier for our residents to sort of identify what's going on. So thank you.
Yeah, you just have to be neon so people can see them at night. You got to be very bright. So Commissioner Ted Terry.
Yeah, they make glow in the dark signs, don't they? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was hoping Director Baker was going to show the signs that I suggested, that I designed, and just for food for thought, because I think the other issue with, I like the redesign. I like where we're going with this. But I think the other issue with these signs is that someone has to handwrite them. And even if they're the smaller signs, if someone's handwriting, if they just do it quickly, which I think is probably never going to change. I feel like someone on planning is like, oh my God, I got to get these signs done, and they're handwriting them. So the QR code, I agree, that creates sort of a very direct line. I do agree that if the QR code went directly to that case, it would be so much easier than having to navigate a website. But I understand where you're going with this. You want to just buy all of the signs at once. And so they're just done. They're in a pile somewhere, and you just take them as needed. I think Commissioner Patrick is right on, because each sign has the opportunity to, in essence, to be its own special sign. And the design that I was trying to get us to go towards was like we did the QR code, larger, but then, make it just a little bit more produced to the point where it could even have a site plan or a point of contact. And instead of it being handwritten, that sign was printed just for that case. And so there's no handwriting issues. It literally is designed for that zoning case. And I know that would cost more because they would be custom signs for each individual case. which is why I think Commissioner Patrick's suggestion is right on. I mean, we asked the developers and the applicants to mail things. I've been getting onto them recently because they still mail a letter with a long Zoom link. You got to type in 33 characters at the end of the Zoom to get to the Zoom link. I think they started to take the suggestion of putting a QR code in their mail advertisement or, their mailings to neighbors. But I would think that the applicants would also want a really clear, easily, sort of relatable sign. And compared to all the money they spend on mailing, getting a $40 custom sign to put out on site that they sort of arrange and I guess we approve shouldn't be too much of a cost burden. And then that way we know that that sign is always will be for that case. And if we can just lay out what we want them to put on it, then we just tell them to fill in the blanks. And then again, I think that's great. I mean, then we don't have to necessarily manage the logistics of it. I assume that's legal if other jurisdictions are doing it. So I feel like we should explore that if there's no issue with state law or anything that goes beyond our requirements.
All right, Commissioner Rader, and
Let me return it sort of to the point of closed access. And, we've heard a lot of good input. I think that the one that we probably would like the best is to move away from having the handwritten type of a sign and as much, printed on detail, including perhaps a QR code. But for that to be accomplished, it is likely you're going to have to transfer that responsibility to the applicant. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to develop some sort of a relationship or interface with a third-party printer where you can enter information into a template and pick up your sign, so to speak, at a location, so that the applicant would have to, fund and undertake that. I don't know if that type of sign printing is readily available, and so you'd have to research that if you're going to get these highly, individualized types of signs. Otherwise, we've got to have something, if staff is going to do them, and if we're going to be working off a stack, to be able to have most of that information to be relatively uniform. So, the key, I think, is to understand what is possible within that realm. And if we're going to individualize them, that we need to have an outsizing mechanism for it. But, having said that, I'm willing to come back and let y'all bring us, some responses related to the input that you've received.
All
So
right.
if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to say again, the purpose of bringing this to you was to get your input and guidance and suggestions. And I think you guys have done a good job of giving us that. And so we appreciate it. Commissioner Terry, I'll definitely take a look back at the emails that you had previously sent. I would like to say, Commissioner Cochran-Johnson, that we will definitely look at the cost of the larger signs. When we had went through our process, the cost of the signs that we had identified was $20,000. So we will be coming back to you with a number and a cost of the larger size. One of the things that's important about this process is, again, I'm glad that the law department is listening. I'm glad that procurement is on call, because you were talking about a specific third-party vendor that could do it potentially. Director Hardy also told me that DeKalb has a 35 square foot sign face maximum for us to consider. And so with all of us having all of these discussions, if we're going to change it and say that it's on the applicant to do it, then we would have to, at any fees that we charge again to the applicant, that would increase the cost to do a rezoning. So you guys have to approve our fee structure of anything that we charge the customers as well. So it's going to take a little bit more time for us to come back, but we will definitely weigh your suggestions, come back to committee, and we'll send all the information out to all commissioners so they all can see the direction that we're going. And so we can have a fruitful discussion at our next meeting to see where we land.
Great. Commissioner Cochran-Johnson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just thinking aloud, because one of the things we've talked about is increasing participation. If we are going to go to an individual sign, as a general rule, most large format printers, they can have this ready for you in 48 hours. That's notice that you're going to need. But if you're going to design independent signs that get away from handwritten, what you may wish to do after they're developed, because when we receive our packet, it always says District 2 and 7, District 1 and 6. Send along to the commissioners each of those individual signs almost as a packet, and we can include those in our newsletters, and that would be a really great click through if you're really wanting to increase engagement for constituents to have the opportunity to sit, click, and read each and every case if they so desire. So just, wanted to put that out there.
And I appreciate that comment, and Ms. McLeod is taking notes on that as well. I think the QR code is a great suggestion too. But as Commissioner Patrick mentioned, his community was smaller and they were walking. I still have some concerns about driving by and trying to click on a QR code or even posting potentially a site plan up there, because as I'm driving by, I can't do it. The only way I can really utilize those tools is that I'm walking or I park and I get out my car and I go up and click and I go up and look at a site plan. But again, all of these are great suggestions, and we will weigh those and we will bring back a recommendation to the board.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Bring it back in 30 days is good, or you need more time than that?
No, that's more than adequate.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll entertain. We'll look at our workforce housing ordinance at our next committee meeting. Can you, Mr. Welch, can you send it to the commissioners so they can review it and look it over as well? And we'll bring it back to our next meeting for a full presentation. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, darn.
So moved.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, and we'll get ready for FAB. See you later.